I'm with Curt Sigfstead, the CFO of Clio. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you, David.
I don't talk to a lot of CFOs, and what I like so much about your background, and I always say this at the start of a show, is you've got a brown background. You went to Bain. You're one of the smart guys in the industry, yet, and there's so many smart guys, not one of the smart guys, a lot of smart guys, but you're out there with customers on an ongoing, regular basis. I don't think that's as common as maybe it could be or should be to be as customer facing as you are as the CFO. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. Tell us a little bit about what you've noticed in the first 2 days here in New York, and then we're going to get into Clio a little bit.
Absolutely. So first of all, pleasure to be here, David. Just a fantastic opportunity to chat with you further about what's going on and what we're seeing, and also, give you some more ideas about Clio. I think the first couple of days here is just tremendous interest and excitement in the continuing topic and the evolving topic of AI, and how, firms are going to leverage that as they start to see increasing pressure on some of their current billing models from customers, and to how they can create a better legal experience for not only the attorneys, but also for their customers, because it's not all about cost, it's about customer satisfaction at the end of the day. So lots of interest and conversations on that front. And two, I think, let's not forget the corporate side of things. A lot of companies are looking to, I think, increase their capabilities or increase their control of their legal operations and their legal spend. And so lots of conversations on how Clio can help them on that front as well.
Let's go back and do a little bit of the hero's journey and do, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Why did Jack Newton build Clio? How did he build it? Reader's Digest version. And then you're aiming, I know, towards the to the enterprise, to the corporate. You didn't start with corporate, but the beginning of the beginning is really interesting to me. 400,000 instances,
400,000 users on our platform today.
I don't think most Fortune 500 heads of legal, heads of innovation understand that. So walk us through the journey. Why did Jack build Clio?
Yeah, so Jack started the company back in 2008 with his partner Ryan Gavreau, and their mission was to improve the legal experience for all once they started this journey. And in 2008, you got to remember, impossible to start a company.
Yep.
The cloud was just emerging. And Jack and Ryan had a view that the cloud could be a transformational platform for small and medium-sized law firms. And in particular, they chose that to start with because that actually represents 80% of the legal population in terms of law firms in the United States. So they started there. It was a very long journey, convincing bars, convincing attorneys that moving your data to the cloud was something that could actually benefit them. At times I think they were called heretics, but they prevailed. And, they began with sort of the 1 to 2 person law firms. They had great success there, built to the 5 to 10, then 20 to 50, where we now lead that market as well. And so continued success as the company went up market. And what became clearer as we entered post-COVID, this AI opportunity, was there was a distinct opportunity now for us to enter the enterprise side of the equation. And enterprise by meaning large law firms, AmLaw 200 and sort of that ilk of firm. And, the two sort of disruptive elements there, you could say it was AI, but what's really coming to fore is just control of cost and sort of a change in business model. And that's introducing the opportunity to introduce AI, which means that a lot of firms have to really recontemplate their tech stack and think about not only the data layer, but also the service layer that they're using. And so that means coming off a lot of legacy systems. And that's where Clio brings the capability of a very unique corpus of legal data, which is part of our Vincent platform. And that is, being delivered to many AmLaw 200 law firms today. And two, we have unique context because we are effectively the operating system for these law firms. So we understand all of the actions of the attorney and where the attorney is spending time. And that context with the data is the very unique value proposition that we bring to market for the enterprise law firm at a time when they are searching more now for partners to help them think through what that next sort of 5 to 10 years is going to be for their firm. So hopefully that gives you some perspective. We're about 2,100 employees globally now, and we've got a presence in, as I think I mentioned earlier, in about 130 countries.
When you say unique context and you talk about actions, are you talking about memory of cases, memory of research, memory of what's out there? It's not amnesia. Like so many folks have this amnesia issue of like you show up and the AI of your choice doesn't remember who you are and what you've done and what everybody in your firm has done, let alone what everybody in the industry has done.
Yeah, so that's on the side that we would humbly submit as sort of in the practice of law side of things. So that's exactly what Vincent does every day, is exactly what you're talking about. But it's really those tools, that platform that helps you
Real time
do the work and give you the information that is relevant to the case that you're working on. What I mean by context is Clio also assists with onboarding. It assists with all the information as to where the case is located. It assists with all the digestion of all the documents. It's tracking billing. It does all of the invoicing and payments. And so all of that is also part of an important AI solution, in the sense that it's really operations of the law firm, and that operations paired with the practice of law gives the attorney real insight as to what's happening, and also gives the AI the maximum ability to deliver on actually doing the work, which is something we believe very strongly in at Clio. Is AI is not really helpful if it's a co-pilot. It's actually got to do tasks.
There we go.
And get the work done.
That's what I was hoping we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that, right?
Yeah.
Doing tasks. We're moving into agents now.
Yeah.
We're moving into autonomous and semi-autonomous kind of work. Walk me into the future. So if that was the prior state, and you've just given us a little bit of the current state, what is the future state?
Yeah. So I think, just from a nomenclature standpoint, we refer to them as teammates, not agents. I think that's the way I think we should sort of start to think about this, because they're really going to be helping the human. We don't look at this as an opportunity to replace heads in a law firm. We think about it as an opportunity to really accelerate the amount of law and the amount of casework that,
like a colleague.
Exactly.
Or an ally.
An ally, exactly. And so, to just give you a very simple example, onboarding. So our legal trends report, which is what we publish every year in terms of sort of a corpus of data around what we're seeing across the legal industry. In particular, I'll give a small and medium-sized law firm example. Close to 50% of inbound calls to a law firm, so potential leads, are not returned by the attorney.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
They're just that busy. And so where can AI help on that? So in our CRM product, which we call Grow, the AI can surface from a lead the information that the potential customer needs to input. That is handled by the AI. The AI then qualifies the lead based on the parameters in the data. 3, checks for conflicts. 4, gives a summary of what the potential customer is thinking about, the potential client, in terms of their issue that they want to discuss. So the attorney saves hours of time just on that front end process, and frankly isn't available clearly to take the call, has a summary so that when the call is initiated, it's a very productive call with a high likelihood of that attorney being able to convert that individual to a client.
I've been thinking about something called the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
What is the Sweet 16? I think that we're getting into a messy stage. If you look at the floor, it's overwhelming. There's too much, and it doesn't have a structure to it right now.
Yeah.
So let's play a little bit of a game. And like, how would this fit out? The core 4 would clearly be, you would have Claude Chat, Copilot, and then you'd have Gemini. Let's give them a core 4.
Sure.
And then in the e-discovery space, you would have your core 4. You would have Relativity, you would have Everlaw, you would have Disco, and you would have Reveal. So another core 4. On the research side, you would certainly have Thomson Reuters and Lexis, and now Clio.
Exactly.
Clio wants to play in that space. So as we clarify this so that the community can go like, here's the Sweet 16 of our space, Clio would fit there. Who else do you put in the, let's pay attention to these people? And then I want to come back to where Clio is going to fit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what, from our standpoint, and I know that's...
Because I know you want to just take out the other 9.
Well, there is an aspect to that, but that, we've got a...
But that's another podcast.
Yes, that's another sort of strategy that we have to lay it on. Exactly, David. I think what we would, what our position is that the distinct lines between pure research, document drafting, and AI, which are sort of 3 distinct categories today. If you sort of went from a Thomson Reuters NetDocs I manage to across the Harveys and Lagores of the world, those will actually collapse.
Say more about that.
That's the game we're playing.
Say more about how that happens.
So, I think a lot of the work today is been driven by, frankly, legacy approaches to how distinct these areas are within a law firm. But if you start to actually look at the work that attorneys do, they are working in a document. That is their atomic unit. And that document encapsulates research. It encapsulates all of the aspects of a DMS, the control of that document. And 3, it needs AI to draw on the resources within the firm and, case precedent, other types of documents. And so by bringing these 3 together, that creates a much more comprehensive solution. 2, I think what it does, it's a much more economic approach for the law firm to think about purchasing, those solutions. And 3, it's actually how the work is done now. It's not these 3 distinct areas. So that's not to say that that's going to happen overnight. I think there's a lot of process change. There's a lot of rethinking as to how law firms are organized, and 3, how they're thinking about buying tech and how they make that transformation over time to effectively restack their tech. And that's going to take some time. But our message is really resonating because, when folks sit back and actually start to think about what that means and the economic proposal, they know that change is coming in terms of the billable hour or sort of how they're going to engage with their customers, and they want to be ready for it. And one way is a much more economical way to deliver on the tech side.
I think we've done a really nice job of looking at the origin story, the hero's journey, what you do, how you do it, who you do it with, V.1, V.2. Let's talk a little bit about the V.3 and the who, right? Because it sounds to me, if I'm hearing correctly, it's like your sites are on the Fortune 500.
Fortune 500 and AmLaw 200, global firms. Yeah, we've got that opportunity set ahead of us.
What do you want to say to them?
Well, first is that, Clio may be new in terms of what you're hearing, but we actually are probably one of the most experienced and long-lived technology players in the legal sector. And that gives us a perspective, and that gives us context in terms of the way attorneys work, the challenges that attorneys face, and the solutions that you need in order to deliver on the requirements to your clients that many other newer players to the market, may not fully understand. And 2, we bring a modern AI-first solution set that is really rooted in the AI first and foremost, and very differentiated aspects, which I've talked about, which is the data and context that frankly no other player is bringing to market. And so, the most important thing I think for your audience to understand is if you haven't thought of Clio, you should be, and you should include us in the conversation, because I think we can bring some really interesting perspectives that perhaps have been absent from the enterprise conversation to date.
Who is the person in, let's just say, corporate legal, right?
Yeah.
So the community that listens to this podcast, Careers in the Business of Law, they're going to be the GC, the CLO, the legal chief of staff, the legal transformation officer, the legal data intelligence officer, and or legal operations, e-discovery, information gathering. Who in that group do you most want to have a conversation with? Who gets it first and foremost that becomes your champion and or your white knight going forward?
Yeah, on the corporate side, it's definitely the chief legal officer, GC. That person in that position that is really thinking about how they're going to deliver legal services as a partner to the rest of their corporate organization, and do that in a way where they've got control, they've got all the right tools to deliver on their objectives, and three, where frankly, their broader team, the company actually feels supported. And so, that's our target audience. And then it's really about, obviously in some cases there's a legal operations leader or there's an IT leader on that front, but
that's the emerging role.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm calling the legal CXO.
Yeah.
Right. So as I watch, and tell me if you're seeing the same thing or you see it differently, I'm watching the emerging role, right? The evolving and emerging role of the GC. He or she is much more engaged and involved in foreign affairs, supply chain issues, global issues, tariffs,
employee matters. Yeah.
And all the issues that were not part of their job description 2 and 3 and 4 years ago. And so I see this gap, this executive level, very executive chief level gap, growing very, very quickly that needs to be filled. And it's coming from executives like you that have a Bain background, a consulting background, an MBA background. Maybe you've got some legal, maybe you don't, but you're running an operation. You're running a business now within a business, and it's, $50 million, $100 million, $200, $300 million worth of business. Some legal operations executives are going to step up and step into that.
Yeah.
And others are going to come from the outside or in and around the company. What are you seeing in these conversations?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have this unique perspective being a CFO in the sense that I've seen this actually happen over the last 20 years in the CFO seat, with respect to the fact that there is an aspect to the CFO role, which is everything that you've mentioned in terms of risk management. Ultimately, a CFO is responsible for risk management in the company, which encapsulates in some cases legal, or there's a separate GC. But in partnership or, subsumed in the role is that risk management. And an important part of that is building the capabilities on the IT front. And that's been ongoing, just given that the systems of record that a CFO oversees are starting to look like a lot of the systems of record that the chief legal officer is starting to, oversee. And the importance of that and the functioning of that as part of a broader enterprise IT ecosystem is only getting more important. And so whether the chief legal officer starts to, encapsulate that, or there is a more senior role for a legal operations leader, regardless, I see that role evolving in a similar way to the way the CFO role has evolved.
Last question. How fast is fast? So if you and I were to get together again, should it be in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months?
3 to 6 months.
Oh, so we're
6 months. Let's do 6 months. And
so it's not 2x. We're at a 5x, 10x rate of change rate.
Yeah. The rate of change is happening. It may, the way we sort of look at it is there's a lot happening under the surface. It looks, attorneys have never been happier with respect to the billings and law firms. Employment's never been higher. And budgets now are really growing for the opportunity they see in transforming their tech stack. So that may look like, oh, wow, it's sort of like old days and things are just great and we're in a sort of a bit of a bubble. But we believe there's a tipping point coming very quickly underneath all of this activity. And so it's happening fast, but when it tips, it's going to happen immediately and it's going to be a major change.
I want to get back together with you. I'm going to take you up on that. Let's do 6 months. I'll be in New York October 1st for Solid New York.
Okay.
Hopefully you'll be in and around. You'll either be there or in and around there. Let's have that conversation and see where we've gone in 6 months. Are we working with colleagues and allies, which some people will call agents? What part of the ecosystem have you absorbed, taken over, partnered with? I think it'll be fascinating.
That'd be great. I appreciate it, David.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.
If you enjoyed this show, be sure to give us a like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your shows. And if you want to take your career from now to next, never eat alone.